Making a commander deck can be pretty involved. You need to come up with 100 cards to put into your list. And sometimes it can feel very special once you actually put the deck together, which is why it can be so hard to take apart a deck. But there is a lot to learn from taking apart your decks. When it's the right time, what to do with the leftover cards, and what you can learn from a failed deck. Which is what I want to talk about today. But first, you only have until January 18th to get in on this new Void Monster drop. This month's drop is a sick Sonic the Hedgehog one. There's a playmat, deck box, and cool Chow tokens. Plus, if you buy the deck box and mat together, you'll get the tokens as a free bonus. I don't know if it's the Chow Garden nostalgia talking, but this might be my favorite drop so far. And considering how good the previous ones were, that's saying a lot. I need to get my hands on one. Hey Forrest, can you save a deck box for me?
Alright.
Each drop has a limited time pre-order window and then it's closed. So after the 18th, these will be gone. You gotta act fast if you want to grab one. Thanks to Void Monster for sponsoring the video. So when is it the right time to pull the trigger on axing a deck? This can be a bit tricky. Even if you're not enjoying a deck right now, that can be fixed without completely taking the deck apart. Sometimes your deck might just be slow, lacking removal, low on card draw, in which case some upgrades can solve those issues and make it a very fun deck to pilot. So instead of looking at a deck that is performing poorly, think about a deck that performs well. If you are doing your thing and even winning the game, then in theory you should be having fun, right? But sometimes that doesn't happen. Maybe you've cast that win con one too many times. Maybe you stole one too many creatures. It happens. Decks will lose their luster over time. And if you're winning, yet still not having a lot of fun, that's when you should consider taking the deck apart. Of course, that's not the only reason to game end your deck though. If you are consistently unable to do your thing, this can also be a problem. Games where you feel like the wheels are just spinning. You have cards in hand and things on board, but they don't quite fit together. Like the wrong half of a puzzle. This can be a sign of different issues. Let's focus on the first thing. Having no fun with your deck despite the list working fine. One easy solution is to find alternatives within the same theme. If you're playing Urza Prince of Krug, for example, you could change to Medicant Core Godlight. Both of these want a lot of artifacts in play, and are somewhat aggressive. Plus, they copy artifacts. These decks have a huge amount of overlap, but will play differently. Urza is more go wide, and Medicant is more go tall. So you can play kinda the same deck. It is Azorius artifacts, but it is in a slightly different way, meaning your engines and win cons might end up being different. This is also a great way to take apart a deck on a budget, because there's so much overlap between the two lists, you're going to end up using a lot of the same cards, and you don't have to buy a whole new deck. You can also do this, but with a larger gap. Instead of playing the same theme within the same colors, try splashing or cutting a color. Many times, adding or cutting a color can completely change the dynamic of your deck's archetype. Like if you're playing Scorpion God, adding green with one of the new Jund -1/-1 counter precons will open up tons of new options, especially because this one cares about putting counters on your own stuff more than other commanders have. Alternatively, cutting a color to play Maha will add new restrictions and can be a fun challenge. Sometimes that new challenge and trying to tinker around and find ways to replace the cards that you lost can be a fun brewing exercise. Now, those are rather easy changes. I find taking a deck apart becomes a lot more difficult when your deck is struggling. A lot of times when your deck is having issues, players will instead try to upgrade the deck, attempting to add better card draw, removal, or finishers. But the issue with this is sometimes you lose out on what your original intent for the deck was. Not saying you should never cut synergy for generically good cards, but you can't go too far. Instead, the issue is your deck might be trying to do too much or too little. Having too many themes is a serious issue that brewers run into a lot. My Abzan deck played a cycling theme, small creatures matters theme, and a blink theme as well. It just had too much jank going on. So instead, I took the list apart. But I didn't throw all the cards away. Instead, using this Abzan shell, I ended up cutting two of the themes and focusing in on the power 2 or less matters. And then I ended up with my McCready Lamplight Mayor deck. And this deck worked much better. By locking in on that one theme, I was able to hone in on what my deck wants to be doing, and then I had a lot more fun playing the list. Alternatively, you can expand on themes if your deck isn't doing enough. I think this is one of the best ways to scrap a deck and build a new one. I used to have an Omnath list some time ago. It was mono green Stompy, ramp, big creatures, slam face. But being a green deck meant it was somewhat influenced by landfall synergies. And one day I decided to lean more into that, and ended up changing the deck into Titania. I added Life from the Loam and other sacrificing land synergies to do more land shenanigans. This list ended up being quite different from my original Omnath one, but it was a lot of fun. It was a very different type of deck, but in a good way. I decided to then further expand on those Loam synergies and added red for Borba, Rigmos, and Raged. This was more land discarding and returning effects, and then Titania moved into the 99. Eventually, I got tired of throwing lands at people and having a high cost commander, so I made Mina and Den midrange, which brought me full circle because I ended up playing a green Stompy deck yet again. By taking the ideas and pieces that were present in a small amount in those old decks, I was able to expand them into fully fledged new ideas for new lists. Each time, expanding those themes allowed me to add and build onto some of the ideas that I liked from the previous list. Now, I want to stress there are no bad decks. Having a deck that you don't like or which sucks isn't necessarily bad. It's actually great for casual EDH players. Decks you don't like can teach you a lot about the game and yourself. You learn about what synergies do and don't work together. And not liking your deck means you know what to avoid in the future. The first and only precon I ever got was the Azuri one, and I never built a counters deck after that. It just didn't click with me. I really didn't enjoy ticking up all my little counters. It wasn't fun. So I took the deck apart. And I've seen a lot of players just jam that default commander deck. You know, some mid-range pile of cards that's mostly creature focused. I've talked about this issue before, but it makes sense since this creature mid-range pile is what most players first encounter when learning about Commander. And I get that it is easier to stick with whatever your deck is doing. You bought the precon, might as well keep it around, right? Add some upgrades here and there, that's usually cheaper than scrapping it and building a whole new deck. But there's nothing wrong with admitting that you don't like a deck or what you built isn't working. These days, I feel like people are afraid of being wrong. Maybe it's just that I spend a lot of time online, but admitting you're wrong is quite uncommon. And worse, people treat you being wrong as some gotcha instead of a learning moment. I never understood that. Haha, you were wrong. Like, yeah, lots of people are wrong about lots of things. It's gonna happen. But realizing you were wrong and learning from it is the best thing you can do, not just in EDH, but many aspects of life. Here's one place I was wrong. There's an old podcast episode where I talked about my Mardu list, and at the time, I had almost all tap lands. No basics, I was playing maximum utility, all the MDFCs, no matter what. And I tested that out. But I never made a video about how untapped lands are a scam and you want all utility lands, because that deck sucked. Well, the deck was fine, but the lands entering tapped was a problem. In hindsight, maybe that was obvious. All of the time I would play off curve and it just kept messing up my deck. So I'm no longer doing that. I run a lot more basics and untapped lands in my lists, even if I miss out on some utility here and there. And ultimately, my decks are better for it. Recently on my podcast, I talked about how one New Year's resolution of mine is to take apart some of my favorite decks that I've been playing for almost 10 years now, just upgrading and tweaking those same decks. So I want to challenge myself to try something new. I think I've explored all I wanted to explore with Gruul Stompy, and I think it's time to go back to Life from the Loam and discarding lands to deal damage. I do know that I enjoy having a low threat Gruul commander that just ramps me and provides value, so I'm probably going to stick with that in some capacity. But I felt that the ramping into unbeatable loops of monsters is just too strong for bracket 3 and wasn't interesting. I know I want to keep Salvaging Station around, but I feel like I've played every combination of this card with Is It stuff that's out there, and it's time to go back to trying out other color combinations. I know what I like from these decks, I know what I want to keep, and now it's time to learn from that and build something new and exciting. And I want to challenge you to do the same. Take your least favorite deck and scrap it. Whether you make something totally new or change the deck's themes, try taking it apart. And think about what you did or did not like about that list. Why was it your least favorite deck? And use that knowledge when making your new deck. And hopefully, those lessons learned will make your new deck your new favorite. Thanks for watching. Foxel asks, what brand of peanut butter do you buy? Jif has always been my favorite. Me, I love Skippy. I don't know what it is exactly, but Skippy is my go-to. I don't know, that's definitely my favorite. Thank you very much to all of my tier 3 patrons whose names you see here. If you want to ask me questions like that, or get access to the Discord, or be in the credits, all you got to do is join the Patreon link below.